Today we have Jared Robin, co-founder of RevGenius with us. Hey, Jared. Uh,
Hey, what's up?
Excited to have you. So just a bit about Jared, right, guys? He's built one of the most influential revenue communities. Everyone knows that in SaaS, like RevGenius, right? Grown it to over 40,000 members, turned it into a seven-figure business in just 3 years. Uh, Also, Jared has this thing where he's helped multiple startups scale from zero to millions in revenue. He's an active host of digital events with more than 5,000 attendees. I mean, the list goes on. He's an active advisor. Through his podcast, Revenue Today, he sparks conversations with GTM leaders. So, Jared, super excited to have you on the show, my friend.
It's so great to be here, and I love what you all are building with Sprouts.
Thank you. So, let's get into it. Let's talk about your journey. Uh, it's so closely tied to community led growth. What inspired you to start RevGenius in the first place?
Oh man, I love this story, and I was diving in with Carthy, our co-founder, yesterday, or the last couple of days, I should say, just like trying to unpack what makes me me, so to speak. And from a journey standpoint, I mean, I wanted to be an entrepreneur since high school, but like was so practical, I guess, and which is like, I guess, fear disguises practicality. And I was in sales for about 15 years and President's Club at Fortune 100 companies to then going to a seed startup without product market fit and without a product that actually worked to figure out product market fit. It was quite a separation there, a difference. And that company ended up working shockingly to us all, even after leaving. Just had an exit a couple of years ago and bounced around to other technology companies in sales and early stage, like head of sales types roles. Went from SaaS, I was in machine learning about 12, 15 years ago, which was like far out. And for the time we had data scientists and stuff, and which was unheard of for a seed stage company in like 2013. But went from that to blockchain to then I'm like all these industries I felt too early with. I'm like I just ran sales for a marketing agency for like a year or two, and during COVID, and side note, I also built like a fashion community. And when I say fashion community, a fashion magazine that had a big community around it along the way as a side project. And during
Right.
COVID, I found myself without a job and I'm like, I need to get a job. And I'm like, if I could do anything in the world, what would it be? And I'm like, I need something that integrates with my life, like lifestyle. I felt a little selfish. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what does that look like? Community came up, like Revenue Collective was there at the time in the B2B space. In the B2C space, there was like Soho House I was a member of, Noya House, like all this other like really interesting creative communities that I really gravitated towards. Remember my fashion magazine life and all of that. And I'm like, okay, this LinkedIn thing came around. We're in 2020. And LinkedIn was around before then, but like this idea of creating content on LinkedIn was like 1 year old. Like Justin Welsh had just started a year before, and he was like one of the pioneers, right? Like for um, leveraging LinkedIn to generate revenue, to generate audience, to build your following and all of that, and whatever you chose to do with it. I'm like, okay, well, I have no job, so I choose to get a job with it, right? Like that was my choice. I'm like, I know I have to network. In 2020, things were getting harder to get jobs, especially during COVID, because nobody was really hiring. And I'm like, I need to go all out. So I started posting on LinkedIn finally. Never had time when I had a job. Funny how that works. But now all I had was time and I needed to take action. And along the way, I realized some of the same people were in the comment sections. And I'm like, oh, this guy's cool, or this girl's cool. She's making really supportive comments for me. So I threw a little group chat together on LinkedIn in the background. We had 4 people. We called ourselves the 4 Musketeers. And I'm
Right.
like, wow, like we really liked each other. It was like vibey and we needed that connection. And I'm like, can you guys like invite other people just like you, like similar roles in like the sales world, and also vibey, like if you know, you know, like that just got along with each other. So everybody brought a couple, and then like the group got to 20 or 25, and we started breaking LinkedIn on the phone. Like it would shut down because people were talking so fast back and forth. And it wasn't a pod per se. It was just like people that loved each other, and they loved connecting with each other. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Fun fact. I'm like, how cool would it be if I started something or tried to start something in the process? Our first idea was actually, how cool would it be if there was a centralized place for all the events for sales? And we didn't really call it GTM at the time. That was kind of like a phrase that was tossed around, go to market, but 5 years ago it was still kind of new, and it wasn't across the whole space yet. And also RevOps was just starting, and like people were just figuring out how to unsilo sales and marketing. Customer success was like kind of new as well. So I'm like, yeah, sales. How do we create a single place for all? I don't know about you. I was getting a ton of sales emails and stuff, and now it's probably 10x what it was in 2020, but it's still so much. I'm like, there just needs to be a single space, because like a lot of these things are actually pretty good, but like there's a lot of noise, and noise is compounded, right? But so I put all the events on like a Google sheet, typical MVP. I'm going to organize this for the people, and I shared it with the people, and two things happened. One, I have no idea if they even cared that I did this. And I didn't care enough to ask, because I'm like, I don't know if, like, how am I going to make money? Like, I thought it was going to be like Eventbrite, where, because 5 years ago, people actually were charging for webinars even. Today, that's not even close to the case. It's funny how that changed. So it's a good idea I didn't go down that path, because there would have been no money. And second, like, I'm like looking at the signal that's right in front of me, like LinkedIn getting shut down, the app shutting down. I'm like, that's Signal. Duh. And I'm like, okay, I think there's a community here. I think that's what it is. What does the space look like? Do we even need a community? And I'm like, okay, Revenue Collective, they're doing a great job, but it's senior leaders and it's paid only. I'm like, okay, interesting. Modern Sales Pros doing a great job, but it's like an email chain and it was senior leaders only. I'm like, interesting. Bravado, heard about them a lot, but it's kind of like an app off to the side. Don't really know much about them. And then Sales Hacker at the time. And I'm like, awesome website, like really good website, awesome content, but it didn't really feel like a community. I'm like, is there really not something for everybody for no cost? And this was big, right? Because if you remember 5 years ago, it was really hard to get into senior leadership if they didn't look like us, if people didn't look like us, right? Like it was just harder. So I'm like, if you have like a senior leader only community, it's important to show the path for others, right? So I'm like, oh, cool. And then I'm like, I think that's the case. I don't know that much. So I just started inviting a lot of people, and everyone started saying yes, and built some growth loops in there. And the next thing I knew, it was snowballing in a really positive way for the space. And since a lot of evolution in the space happened, it was exciting. But I for the first 7 months, it was growing so fast, and I didn't take any money in or figure out a business model, because I wanted to see what I had. I had no idea, because community was like so new.
Yeah.
And I'm like, social media networks make money from advertising, but they're not charging their members. I'm like, could this be a new type of social media network? Like, I don't know what I don't know, but I know that putting a business model in too early, if I could afford this, when I was hanging on by a thread, Karan, like from financial perspective, and it was COVID, and I'm like, if I try this at any point in my life, it's now, and I think the whole world might look different tomorrow, period, and kind of did. So wanted to see what I had, and then eventually put in a business model similar to others, because it started normalizing the space. But yeah, that's how I started and how I got there. Thank you for
Yeah.
asking.
No, that's so inspiring. And Jared, like, I just wanted to, even though this is not what I was thinking of, but like, can you talk a little bit more about this hanging by the thread,
Yeah.
right? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through this, oh shit, I'm gonna die moment, right? Or the company's gonna die, and what will happen to me? And they link their identity to the startup.
Yep.
So they,
So
I mean, I've spoken to so many of them. They go through this catharsis. So can you talk a little bit more about like how you faced it and how do people deal with those situations?
yeah, so I've been saying the biggest superpower for being a founder, and some successful founders that I work with, I consult with, that I know are like, I think anxiety is good. And here's the deal, man. Whatever you are as a person, being a founder is going to heighten everything. It's not going to create anything new, but it's going to trigger you often from what's ever happened in your life, and as much as you've been that. So it's not going to create a new fear. It's just going to shed a lot of light on a fear you've always had. I've always been anxious a little bit, but like, boom. So first and foremost, I say that being even keeled is a superpower. It's a superpower I've had to learn though, right? Like, and I'm constantly learning it. So hanging by a thread, one quote, Jason Calacanis, love him or hate him, he's a prolific investor regardless. And startups don't die when they run out of cash. That's a common misconception. And actually, this wasn't just Jason Calacanis. This was oh man, this was Naval as well, I believe. Right? I think this is a Naval
Yeah.
quote. They die when the founder runs out of energy. So I was here without money for 7 months. I was living on unemployment. I was living on my dad's in my dad's place because unemployment was enough for rent and maybe $100 more a month. So I lived with him for 5 weeks because I didn't want to admit defeat and give up my place. Financially, it made sense to. Psychologically, it didn't, right? Because if I moved in with him, that would be like me admitting defeat. But I did move in with him for 5 weeks, so that he could buy me food, so I could eat. I didn't have a big nest egg. I fortunately have a little bigger one now because I've been smarter, because I've taken a lot of bets and a lot of gambles, most of which hadn't paid off in the past. There's some founders that go in after McKinsey gigs and this and that, and they have 6, sometimes 7 figures in the bank. I did not. I had like under $600, maybe under $6 at some time. So the safety net for me was even smaller, and so frankly, it was an at that time it was an unmistakable faith that what I was doing was something so important and so beneficial and so unique in my journey that I may never have a chance this again and to impact people like this again. And I had spent time meditating in the past before this. I'm not saying I was that Zen mind when I was thinking this. In fact, I was still drinking and taking toxins in and stuff like that. I've since stopped. Um, but at the time, I was like, but I had known, like, and I had been present at different points of my life for periods. It always comes and goes. And I said, if not now, when? And as I said, as I foreshadowed earlier, I wanted to be an entrepreneur since 18, but practicality held me back. And I'm like, wow, I literally have no job and no prospects for a job. If I don't do, there is no safer time for me to be unsafe than now, even though it was because of how unsafe of a time it was. I'm like, I don't even know. I got to just do this. And I
It's
had
almost like if you have
unmistakable
nothing,
faith. Yeah. I
it's
had
almost
nothing
like
to
if you have
lose.
nothing, yeah, if you have nothing, you have nothing to lose, right? I mean, you're going from there.
Yeah.
But like, please continue. That I didn't want to interrupt.
I had nothing to lose. Like I had nothing to lose. Except what I had to lose was me not satisfying my ambition. If I were and I personally felt that working for somebody else throughout my career, I didn't always follow fully their mission or their point of view and stuff, and wanted to forge my own path. So enter RevGenius and just went as hard as I could at different at like at in particular a growth KPI that didn't necessarily uh, equal dollars directly. I took a bet on a North Star, being acquire as many members as I could as quickly as I could, being the right thing, which to be honest, it was at the time. Long term, maybe not ultimately to generate revenue, but like it created so much buzz and so much groundswell. And I'm going to be doing that again shortly. I got out of the weeds, so to speak, and now I'm jumping back in. Um,
Right. And yeah,
Fortunately, I guess. Yeah.
this is a really touching story. Thanks for sharing that, man. What is your like?
Yeah.
I know we had to discuss other things, but what is your advice to
No, we'll
for
discuss everything.
yeah, like like I said, there's so many people who go through these moments, and you obviously went through it, and you took a step, and you came out of that. People who are in those, especially like the market goes down, and people are struggling, and you're seeing AI disrupting a lot of traditional models, and yes,
Yeah.
everyone is trying to get on the AI bandwagon. Some are ahead of the curve, some are very nervous. People who are like getting into an existential crisis, right, and who have
Yep.
bet everything on the startup they're at, and they don't have like plan Bs. What would you say to them today? Like,
So, it's funny, and it drives us to a connection with today, with like Audience House that I'm building and RevGenius, in the direction I'm taking it now, is first and foremost, I believe you need to be building something different and have a different point of view. If you're going to be building the same thing that's already out there, how are you going to win? You're going to have to be cheaper, or you're going to have to be better. Well, better is what? You're going to have more parts of the product, or product more advanced. Great. What if they raise funding tomorrow? Then they're going to be better the next 3 months. So you're going to be neck and neck in the better game. If you're trying to be better than an incumbent as well, you're starting in an inferior position, right? Like if you were going to come in to a category that already exists and try to be better than the category king, you're fighting for the 25%, because by numbers, you're going to the CRM category. That's an easy example, right? Like, do you honestly think you're going to get more than 25%? And people are laughing, listening to this, like 3%, right? I say that example to, show the point. And then if you're going into a category that's not defined yet, well, even more of a point to go and define it and build a market with that. So I think, the simplest thing here is, how are you doing something different? Okay. Like, how is your point of view different and showing a new future? And with the fashion magazine, how is my point of view different as a side project? I realized that every fashion magazine had major fashion brands. And I'm like, I can go in and be good, but there's no way I could be better than Vogue. Like, then I said, holy shit, like all these new brands aren't in Vogue, aren't in these other magazines, and they're kind of cooler and they're more interesting, and it's the future. So I created a magazine just of emerging fashion brands. You know what happened? Parsons School of Design. I'm winning international fashion film awards. I'm meeting Kanye West, who ended up who at the time was cool, who ended up hiring somebody that I knew, and like building my place in this space. So like that was a different point of view, and then others followed it, and that was interesting, and that enlightened me, and then I was able to be like, yeah, let's go, like let's support,
right,
be
interesting, and
passionate about it, and then with RevGenius, like let's support all of these other people. So I think when you build something different and you're really strong with your point of view on that, there's like a natural extra passion that comes And you're like, yeah, the way that it's been doing is getting the results it's been getting. If you want to actually solve the problem, like let's look at it from this way, and that's what we're doing.
Right. No, I hear that. And I think the challenge for 90% of the entrepreneurs is if you ask them hand to heart, they will not be able to convince themselves that they're building something different. It's like you said, better, cheaper, more
Yeah.
efficient, focus niche verticals. Focusing on niche verticals could be a differentiation. Saying, hey, I'm not building for everyone, I'm building for this thing. And that is difference right there. But like, question for you, uh, revenue creator, how do you link this think different, the famous Steve
And
Jobs?
that's what Apple did, right?
Yeah.
Steve Jobs is like literally the top category designer in history, or amongst them, right?
Yeah. No, and how do you link this to your term revenue creator? Right? Like, can you talk about like what does that
Yeah.
mean?
So, and I'm gonna put this in my words, and I want to give credit to Carthy, my partner, who's really pushing me and us to like take this to the next level. So when I started, and let me connect the dots here for everybody. I knew inherently like I needed to be different. When I met Carthy added an extra element because like I'm speaking like very like normal, like cool, very an extra element of sophistication, and strategy with how to like name, frame, and claim that, right? So like going into a revenue creator, what we have today, we have GTM professionals. And what is that? Like sales, marketing, rev ops, customer success, this idea that somebody on the top, probably a CRO, or a chief GTM officer, depending on who you ask, aligning this, desiloing this, all of this. Cool. We've seen the results that it's happening. I'll save time. The results are going down objectively, like across the board, like numbers, all of this. And so the idea of, and at the same time, we have this new tool, AI, right at this inflection point that is enabling humans to do more, and to like not even just 10x themselves, like 100x plus. So this is allowing us to be able to think differently about how we structure orgs, right? Like, because 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. One goal plus one goal, 2 AEs, doesn't equal 2, like it used to. A revenue creator is somebody that thinks through things from a first principle perspective. Like, how do I get to revenue? Does it have to do it the same way? How can I leverage AI to get along the way, and be more effective and more efficient? How can I rethink this whole department or everything like objectively based on the goals we want? And also, is it just go to market? Like I spoke about, like going to somebody else's market and competing for 25%, or do we have to create the market? Right. And we've spoken about this, like creating a new market, like Tesla did all of this. Like, how does this all come together to build something bigger in a new way? And we believe that it's requires creativity, and that creativity is going to be some of the secret sauce, and we want to embrace that. We want to help people guide like to this future, right? Like I'm in the RevGenius Slack now. People are sharing prompts with how to figure out their ICP better, right? If there's a tool exists, like yeah, sure, but people are doing it in house, and they're hitting different results. Um, speaking to people like who are building their business autonomously with like a few people, we have multiple 20-person unicorns out here. The traditional model doesn't allow that, because if everybody has a $1 million goal and you hit 70% of that, that's 700K. This is how many people we need. If we keep this percentage from churning, that's the traditional way. You can't get a 20-person unicorn the traditional way unless you get there and then you fire everybody and you have 100% retention or whatever. But you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like we have to think differently, and the revenue creator does that. And that's the new person. It's the person building prompts. It's the person thinking, do we need a head of AI for the company? And does that person optimize revenue and ops and product? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the rise of the revenue creator. It's really taking everything that we're doing and helping companies generate more creatively.
Right. And so if someone says, "Oh, great, this sounds fascinating, Jared, how do I become a revenue creator from my traditional role today? Right? How do I think different? Like, this all sounds cool, but
Yeah.
like, what is the playbook for becoming a revenue creator? Is there one, or is that getting
It,
figured out?"
so it's funny. You mentioned, is there a playbook? Like, we're essentially fighting against the sea of sameness and the sameness syndrome.
Right.
Um, the former playbooks, by the time you release a playbook, it's already not working for you. So other people
Right.
are going to get it. I have a LinkedIn outreach playbook. Yeah, come on, you have to constantly. And I want to give credit to Clay, who's thinking GTM Alpha, like this concept in general. Like, you have to think uniquely. And while I think how they describe it is a bit tactical, um, I think I think there are some interesting takeaways from that, right? Like in regards to being different and like being ahead and all of that. So what's the playbook? We want to help people create their own is the answer to that. So the content that we put out, the roundtables that we're going to have, like just with leaders and founders are going to be a major part of this because the new enterprise is based on revenue, not the amount of employees, I think, going into the
Yeah.
future. If we look
Right.
5 years down the road, it's based on revenue, not employees.
Right. And you know, you also in the recent past said the real battle isn't AI versus AI. It's who can build systems humans trust and feel amplified by. Right. So how does
Yeah.
that show up inside a GTM org? Like, what does it look like when you use AI to empower and not replace? Right. Like, can you talk a little bit more about that post?
So, first and foremost, companies in general have to really connect with people. You can't just have a good outbound sequence or great AI processes. The company's got to stand for something that people care about and really, really connect with the human. There's a ton of B2C examples. Patagonia, literally giving their company to the environment and planet. You have Tesla. You have helping the environment. Tom's pair of glasses giving, taking all of this. There's a ton of examples, but it's the idea that like companies or category 1.0 is that of extraction, and 2.0 is having to give, right? Like give, because it starts where noise, people don't know what to believe in general. Like the noise just raises, and then people become disenfranchised by everybody, right? Like, how do I know who to connect with? So like you have to build a company that stands for something and connects with people. Then what you layer on top, like we wrote about ontology, the meaning of words and like how important they are in describing things. And when you layer AI on top of that message, it's gonna be more connected with folks. But it starts with the core company and the humans behind it.
Right. Right. And how do you? Okay, so the AI as an empower versus replacement. But do you think it's like a step towards like it'll empower and then it'll replace? Like it's just while you're talking about that, but like eventually it'll just like it's just a matter of time. when the empowerment will be like, hey, why do I even need these humans?
So let's take a step back and look at running any prompt in ChatGPT, right? Anything you run in ChatGPT is based on information inputted, right? By humans, probably at some point, or scraped. Let's just look at the basic principles to understand where it's going. The people that just go into ChatGPT and ask a question or a prompt, they're all going to have similar answers. And that's becoming the new sameness, right? Like if that's all you're doing, can AI replace that type of thing? Or that, yeah, it could replace sameness. But that's why, the idea of being creative is a high premium, because that person needs to add new to AI, add new to the Wikipedia, right? Like, so to speak, new people, new experiences, new everything. So I don't think AI could ever fully replace people at its most creative level. I think it could replace processes and stuff like that. It can empower people to be way stronger. Does that make sense? Like, because
Yeah,
so if perfect example, you look at ChatGPT, what's a revenue creator? It's going to pull all this stuff based on revenuecreators.com. I did it today. Based on creators, and it's like trying to figure this out. I literally have to input content that we have, upcoming content that we have, so that I could get the answer and the synopsis based on, like, are you going to be that creative person or not? Like if you're building something new, come on, like you're the one to implement that, put that in, bring the market. Wow, that's amazing.
right. And Jared, we are already a little over
AI is
time.
not telling us whatever Elon's building next. I promise you that.
Right. No, absolutely. No, that makes sense. And we are on time or a little over time, but best of luck with Audience House. Super excited
Thank
about
you.
that initiative. And I think we have proven it with RevGenius and now taking it to the next level with Audience House. So best of luck, and people should definitely reach out. I think it's a very unique concept on creating more movements and being the revenue creator by just taking a different approach. And kudos to you to trying out something different, right? And I think there are more questions, and I will talk to the team if we can have a follow on at some point, right? And would love to pick your
Totally.
brains on some other points.
And Karan, I'm always available. If anybody wants to connect with me, do it on LinkedIn. Say that you heard me here, and I'll connect with you, and we'll become friends. And I'm here to answer questions.
Thanks, man. That means a lot.
Thank you.